So, hi, I'm Liz Sweigart. I have the esteemed pleasure of being the 2025 SCP President and also a past presenter at the SCP Midwinter Conference twice, as well as having presented at APA Convention and a whole lot of other places. So, lots of time spent writing proposals, and I'm really excited that I got to pick the location and the theme for the 2026 SCP Midwinter Conference, which will be in fabulous Las Vegas this coming February. And the call for proposals will close on the 31st of this month, but it's not too late. You can still get your proposal in. And so the purpose of this session is, one, to give that little last minute encouragement to anyone who may want to submit but hasn't done it yet, or is thinking about, well, how else could I sharpen up my proposals? Because there's lots of places I want to speak, and especially in the age of AI, it feels like it is getting harder and harder to compete with the sheer volume of presentation proposals that now show up for conferences. And frankly, a lot of what we're going to talk about today also relates to journals. It relates to any type of publication or showcasing of your work. And so we're going to kind of cover off what, from our experience, we've seen as setting proposals apart, and helping you to make sure that you put your best foot forward when it comes to getting yourself and your work out there. So that's kind of me. I will now turn it over to my co-presenter, Dr. Shannon Jennings.
Hello. Okay, so this is the part where I have to introduce myself in some type of way, I guess, right? So I don't even know what qualifies me to be here and lead this and talk about this. There's any more than anybody else who's already here. Other than that, I've played the role of conference co-chair a couple of times for SCP and program co-chair for APA convention. And in that role, I got to read quite a few of the different proposals that have come in, the way that they're structured, and seeing which ones the readers tend to gravitate towards and pick, and also then which ones the audiences tend to show up for. And I've seen some mistakes that are made along the way that prevent really great ideas from making it onto the conference agenda. So I'm grateful to Liz to have the opportunity to share that. We did this session a couple of years ago when Ujjaini Brawley and I were leading the conference. And to Liz's point, we really wanted to bridge the gap for the people who were thinking about proposing, who had an idea, but the distance between I'd like to do this and I know how to do this was too far and too confusing. And if we don't do that as a group, then what you end up with is the same folks who are wonderful, right? But you end up with the same usual suspects over and over again being the presenters. And then we lose that diversity of voice. We lose the opportunity to bring maybe earlier career professionals or people who are embarking on new pieces of research or new stuff. And so I guess for me personally, part of why I want to do this and hope this becomes a regular part of what we do at SCP is because while we have great speakers who have been on stage or on the front of the room with our group over and over again, we still need to feed it back and make sure that we have a pipeline of new people coming in to be able to do that. Otherwise, I don't think we're really fulfilling our mission as an organization. So, yeah, sorry about the soapbox, Miss President, Madam President. And for my agenda for this is also to hear from the group. I want to know what kind of questions people have, what kind of experience and insight people have learned along the way. I'm going to go skip to right around one of my last ones, which is like, this is a group experience. We are a community, and I want to make sure that we are helping each other be excellent and level up. So that's me. And I'll be mostly touring the website and stuff like that.
Love the theme. Mira, do you want to go next?
I'm Mira. I'm a member. Is there more you wanted me to share? You're on mute.
Hi, Mira.
Hello now. Give You have to introduce
It's just
yourself as a
it's just a
fellow
chance
now?
to say hi. It's just a chance to say hi.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
you are a fellow of both SCP and APA.
Yes.
Big time.
Yeah, big time. Dr. Rachel?
Oh, I am just a participant. No, I am a participant. I quickly joined and then started helping make the Kool-Aid of SCP. So grateful to be here and meet everyone. It's kind of, if you haven't officially joined, you've hopefully already discovered that you found your people. Um, I try to never miss, so I actually didn't know the topic for today. So I'm very happy because I am literally working on, like I stopped working on the proposal to join the session. Um, so I'm had an aha moment, pitched it to Dr. Bob Hopple, who's gonna join with me on presenting this, hopefully, if we get approved. So very excited. And I think I'll just throw this question out there in case others want to, when we open it to the discussion, this is something that others are experiencing, is striking that balance between an engaging description and takeaways, right? But like still like this is academic, it's not pop media, there's just that balance between, yes, there is extant literature will be discussed, but we're not going to put you to sleep, right? Like this will be fun and engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Hi, Andrea.
You. Um, so I came to SCP. I've been to a few of the conferences. I actually got introduced through for SCP through the NYU coaching and the executive coaching and organizational consulting program. I actually was able to attend Shannon's Wicked Problems workshop that she did at at the conference this year, and very interested in submitting a proposal. I was very excited about this year's theme, Level Up, and I have had a lot of, over 10 years of experience in well-being consulting. I don't have a psychology background per se, other than that I am an ICF certified coach. And the master's program that I was in certainly was a lot of research, positive psychology. They were very wonderful in supporting my well-being background and how I supported organizations. So I'm curious about submitting a proposal that would be in line with sort of the well-being and resilience topic, even maybe potentially for coaches or how people can bring that more into organizations strategically. Very curious about what spiky point of view or what point of view might be best for to make like a standout proposal for the speaker submission, if that's possible. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Oh, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby, you are next on my screen. Welcome. It's great to see you again. And you're on mute. You are on mute. Oh dear.
I said, so nice to see you all too. And I apologize for parachuting in here a couple of minutes late. I've actually been traveling today and just got into my hotel room and immediately set up my laptop to join you. I'm excited about this and so nice to see you guys again. And it sounds like the topic was just a general introduction and our intention.
Yes, we're just doing around, since we're a small group, we just thought we would go around and just hear everybody's little intro. And if there's anything in particular that you are looking to learn or share about crafting great conference proposals.
That's amazing. Well, I'm still floating on air a little bit from the APA conference the other week with you guys and connecting with Dr. Shannon and Dr. Rachel. So it's nice to see you guys again. And I really, it was during the conference, I attended your talk, Dr. Liz, among others, and was just feeling very excited about Division 13. I hadn't fully understand what happens in here, but definitely wanted to come and connect and I think learn more about all of you and the mission even before I heard what the topic was, because I'm very, very interested in, if it is useful to the community, putting out more information about about my perspective as a psychologist who's been practicing coaching psychology for about 10 years and also seeking to train specifically therapists in this modality, because I feel like this is an underrepresented segment of our profession as psychologists, and one with a lot of growth potential. So I wanted to come and connect, first of all, but then I'm very interested in the proposal best practices.
Amazing. Thank you. Dr. Stacy, would you like to say hi?
Hello, how is everyone?
Good.
Good. This will be my first conference. I'm really glad that you're having this meeting tonight. I thought I missed the deadline. And so I had just kind of put it in the back of my mind and said, oh, I missed it this year. I'll, put it on next year or shoot for it next year. And then this came out. And so I don't know where I got my dates mixed up, but I thought the deadline had come and gone, which is a positive thing because, or it's a double-edged sword because I'm like, oh, I didn't miss it. It's actually now. But now it's like, oh gosh, okay, well, I need to hop on it before I really do miss it this time. And so I will be diligently working on my proposal for this week. I, like so many others, I am at the intersection of behavioral health organizations and people, and how that influences everyday, life and our work relationship with work, specifically in this context when you talk about well-being. About the well-being of leadership, which is and the behavioral health of leadership, especially in today's climate and all that is going on. And I think that's a population that we kind of miss out when we talk about employees. We generally are talking about the general population, and not necessarily the well-being and the mental health and the behavioral health of those that are having to steer the ships during this period of time. And so there's somewhere in there's a talk or a conversation in there about leveling up and all of that. And so I'll figure it out this week and shoot my shot.
Well, and we will all get to be in the room where it happens. Excellent. Thank you. Next on my screen is Dr. Shelton. If you'd like to say hi, it is not required.
Hi, I'm Amanda. You've seen my husband walking in the background. Currently trying to get dinner going, so I'll be off camera most of the time, popping back and forth. But I've done some conference presentations in a virtual environment for the last 5 years for some local areas and some online areas, mostly focused in just like psychometrics and program evaluation. But I've finally been able to make my move into my niche, is where I kind of like to call it. And I love hearing what Dr. Lisa said about that upskilling of certain clinicians. I will say that the Twin Cities is a little bit unique because we have got the term psychologist in Minnesota is actually regulated here by only PhDs that are licensed, and we have some major, what you would probably foresee as more of like consulting or industrial and organizational psychologists, where that's really not where they are at, like in PDI 9th House, MDA, that are clinicians. So in the cities here, there is a significant divide between the clinician and non-clinician population, where there's certain perceptions that we are trying to navigate. In fact, I'm reaching out to Ted in September, given the work that he's doing on that work team with APA. But I'm just looking forward to getting some guidance on how to actually writing grant proposals for this area, rather than being more focused on psychometrics and program evaluation.
Amazing. Thank you. So Daniel, you're next on my screen if you just want to say hi. Okay, Daniel cannot unmute right now, but Daniel is in training to be a future podcast host for the education domain. So big thank you to Daniel. That's a huge help. And it's a great way to volunteer at SCP, is to help with our production of our various education webcasts. So Daniel, thank you. And then finally on my screen, but certainly not least, Nicole, do you want to say hi?
Sure. So I'm working on a whole bunch of things around belonging through kind of personality. I'm creating a chat bot right now on intersectionality through accessibility and disability. And that's been a really in-depth project. And then I'm currently finishing up a dark personalities type of book on how people are communicating belonging and love. Yeah, and the modalities I'm using is quite interesting. And so those are kinds of some of the kinds of things that I'm looking at. And then also one of my friends and we really work a lot on product development and talking about that because things are shifting in our world and looking at what can we do just besides writing another book, because having that with our names attached to it, partnering with other people is super important because one, we're not on our own little island. And two, it's just like having that extra income, but it's also having that extra piece come alongside of you that just even gives you more authority or credibility in that industry. So those are the kinds of the things I've already put them all together and had it before the deadline. I sometimes am an overachiever. So I'm thinking about going back and revamping a couple of them and relooking at things. So that's kind of my thing. So yeah.
Very cool. Lorenzo, do you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. Lorenzo Moultrie, been with Division 13 for about 3 years now. I am actually submitting my final draft for my dissertation, so hopefully that'll be done here shortly. So looking forward to that.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you for all of your help with the education domain, and congratulations on your recent election as SCP's next treasurer. So big thank you for all of your contributions.
Definitely.
All
Thanks.
right. We're all here. So Dr. Jennings, where shall we start according to the agenda that we put together?
Well, we're going to do a quick tour of the site where you submit your proposals, because there's some handy dandy things on there that you might not have been aware of. I mean, I'm sure, as you know, doctorates in psychology, we all read all the things down to the tiny print. But just in case there might be some of you who are like me who might miss some things and realize, oh, there's a handy dandy resource there, I'm going to show you a couple of things. So when you will find the call for proposals on the SCP website under conferences, call for speakers. And that's where the call for speakers is always going to be. You can see it's under this tab. You can go back in history. And so like over time, this is a tab where it's always going to be for both APA convention and SCP conference. Just rolls from one to the next year after year. So I wanted you to know where that is. But the main stuff you'll see, right? This is the part people probably read where it just describes what the session is. This year, there's something a little bit different where we're going to have the 2-hour mega sessions. There's only a couple of them. One of the first things you're going to want to do is make sure you know what kind of session that you're proposing. They are a little bit different. 60-minute concurrent sessions, there's going to be the most opportunity on the agenda for, fewer 2 hours, and then typically even fewer with the 4 8-hour workshops. I'm just going to throw this out there right off the top. If you're thinking about doing a workshop, you don't just have to get it past the committee and be selected. It's also very important that you're prepared to market your workshop, because it's a paid part and it's an additional fee, and you have to get enough people there or your workshop will get canceled. So just keep in mind, we love workshops, we want really good ones, but that one is a little bit of a heavier lift in that We will market it. The conference folks will market it, but you got to get out there yourself and gin up the business, if you will, so that enough people know that. Because most of the time, if they don't fill, it's not because people aren't interested. It's just because they weren't aware and they weren't really marketed to. So I know I'm jumping the agenda, but I think that's important to know. So most likely you're going to be doing a 60-minute concurrent. Every time
So
you
Shannon, I just want to jump in for 1 second and just
Sure.
make it just really clear about the workshops. When we say there's an extra fee, it's not for you, the speaker, it's for the participants. So we
Yes.
charge participants to attend the workshops. They can be either a half day at 4 hours or a full day at 8 hours. Our limitations are, one, we don't want to run too many because they will not all be filled. So what we
Right.
try to do is we try to run a small number of high quality, high draw sessions. And we do charge attendees for those sessions. The other piece around marketing is that we can market it certainly through the listserv, but also it's a great way to pull in people who might not otherwise be attending the conference. So you can absolutely market it through your LinkedIn. If you have other if you have sort of other avenues of social media available to you, if you have a newsletter on your website. And the whole idea is that you want to get as many folks in your network and beyond aware of and engaged with coming to the workshop. So that's just a little bit more on the workshop.
Oh, great great clarification. I was not clear about that. Yes, people pay extra, they come a day early, and so it has to be a draw to them to get them in, but they also have to kind of know about it early enough that they make those plans. So, thank you. That was perfect clarification. So this is just your general information, and I won't read all this to you, but just know that it's there. And another link that people sometimes miss is all the way at the bottom, which is the SCP values. It's helpful to know what those are. We are looking for those, when you're thinking, gosh, does this fit exactly into the list of things? Go back to the values, and if it fits, it fits. Another really handy thing that most people don't know is in here. If you check on this box, you're going to get your CE checklist and guide. Even if you're not doing CEs, there's super good information in there. The one I'm going to go straight to is going to kind of address Rachel's question from earlier about the balance between sort of language that's going to draw people in and where you need to have that real like academic science-based language. One of the areas in which you want to have your language dialed in is going to be in your learning objectives, okay? And here's the thing, there's a formula for your learning objectives. This is not creative writing on the learning objectives, right? This is like stats where you go in and you use the words that are there for you. And so in this fabulous document that some amazing people put together in 2022, it has examples of well-written learning objectives. So I will be able to describe at least 2 theoretical approaches to. I will employ techniques, demonstrate techniques. You see the language there? Okay. And then it gives you examples of insufficient ones. These are ones that aren't going to be good enough. And then some examples of they're acceptable, but mediocre. These are critical to getting your proposal accepted, no matter where it's going to be, that you have crisp, clear language identifying your learning objectives. Any thoughts about that from folks who've proposed successfully, or anything anybody wants to add about drafting learning objectives? Because mostly I'm just directing you to a tool that can help you. But any tips out there, I'm happy to hear. You're really good at this, Liz.
I think you covered it really well, but going back to the tool is really important. You can find the tool. So Shannon, can you just go back and show everybody how to navigate to it again, please?
So if you just check CE checklist and guide, it's going to open up in a new tab. Okay. And it's a PDF. So depending on your settings, for me, it opens up in a new tab. For you, it might download into your folder because it's a PDF document. And it's got tons of helpful information on CEs, on learning objectives, on presenter qualifications, competencies. It's a handy dandy document to help you dial in your proposal. Check it out, scan for the most important stuff. The other thing that's on this page, if you click here, this is actually going to take you to where you submit your proposal, which is in the Whova app, I think you pronounce it.
Mhm.
Okay. But before you go there, you might easily miss it that in the middle is the template. Now that's going to download the Word version of the document. Has anybody had any trouble finding that or getting to the Word version, making it work? Good. Sometimes in the past it's been a little tricky. I'm going to go ahead and share that really quick just so you see it. My suggestion is create your proposal in this and then move it over into the app, right? But the reason I'm showing you this is also to that question about where do I put the different kinds of language? And this is how I do it. I don't know if it works for everybody else, but I think about the session title and the session summary as the public facing pieces of the document. These are the things that are going to go into the conference agenda, that people are first are going to read the title, see if they're interested. You'll notice that if you're not, half of them are going to have level up in the title. So if you can say level up without level up, you might stand out. I don't know, right? But this section summary is engaging, it's informative, it's what's to your audience. The session outline is where I tend to use more academic language. It is to convince the readers that I know what I'm going to talk about and what the experience of the attendees will be. My biggest piece of learning from about this is however big I start, take off 2 accessories, right? Like I always start, I don't know about y'all, but I always start too big and it's way more than I can do in an hour. And so this process and the character limit helps me dial it in, right? Because if you're going to make a mistake, the mistakes I see the most are people are trying to cram too much into this and it's confusing. The more you can think like modular, clear, doable, think about your audience experience, you're going to be better off. So shorter and more clear for your readers is better than lots of words that prove how smart you are. Hopefully that's clear and not lots of words proving how smart I am.
On the session outline, I would highlight the word outline to the
Yes.
extent that you can not write a novel, but instead demonstrate your flow, right? A good paper can be outlined. So your presentation should be able to be outlined so we can follow the logical flow and also tick and tie it back to your learning objectives. Because by going through your outline, I should be able to see how your learning objectives line up with the different segments or sections that you anticipate in your presentation. And so if you can line up where your learning objectives are being met in your session outline, and it's clear you can get through that amount of material in the time you're asking for, so it's right-sized to the space that you're looking to fill, that is very encouraging to the readers. What is discouraging to me when I have reviewed proposals is seeing learning objectives that I cannot find in the session outline, or in seeing learning objectives being addressed as items Y or Z on the outline and thinking we are never going to get to these. So your learning objectives will not be met. And in the context of something like the SCP conference or APA convention, or if you get the opportunity to propose to speak to the lawyers or the nurses or the accountants or anyone else whose big draw is continuing education credits, what you really want to highlight, because like think about what the continuing ed people are reading. The continuing ed people are reading to make sure the learning objectives are robust, they fit the aims of what the credit is being awarded for, They will actually be covered in your session, and you have material that directly speaks to them. And we'll talk a little bit later about how for continuing ed, you're going to be asked to include academic references. If you're ever speaking to the lawyers or the nurses, there's other types of references that they want to see brought in addition to your area of expertise. Same with the accountants. But the real key here is in demonstrating your rigor in matching your content to your objectives and demonstrating that you understand the amount of time you have and how you are going to logically convey all of this information to your audience. This is about managing expectations. And if you give the readers the perception that, yes, you can manage your time, you can cover off what you say you're going to cover off, and the material is robust to meet your objectives, that is you are already ahead of the game compared to a lot of other proposals that will be in the pile.
And wonderful, right? And as you can see here, 3 or 4 for a session that's under 4 hours long. I mean, for a 1 hour session, I wouldn't suggest having more than 3 learning objectives, right? Any more than that, and I'm going to be really worried about your ability to manage the time. The other thing, just quick hits, is there are different tracks that you can choose from. You may find that your session fits lots of them. Pick the best one. It's not critical, but if you pick, if you pick something that totally doesn't match up, then folks are going to be like, if you didn't pick enough, they're probably not going to not select you because of that. So, but do try to dial that in. You do want to make sure that you connect it to the conference theme, as was mentioned, right? Again, this doesn't necessarily need to be super academic or incredibly wordy. It just needs to be clearly stated. Here's what we're talking about, identifies the theme, and go back to, if you're wondering what was the theme again, you don't need to do it just from the title. Back on that website, it has a whole description of the theme, but also handy dandy, right here at the top, there should be some information on the theme. Look at that. There is. Where is it at? There it is. So it you can connect it right back to that. I think people sometimes could go a little deeper than just the words that are in the title and read what the conference folks have written there. And look back to that, because it might not be just the words that are in the title. And then also one of the things we see happen is the level, where'd it go? Sorry to scroll so quickly. But there's one that asks you about the level, early career, late career, whatever that language is. Where'd it go? Pick one. You don't need to pick a bunch of which type of, there it is. For your audience, just pick the best one. Don't pick a lot of them, just pick one. People are going to come regardless, but there's something about the process they have to actually, for the CEs, I think they can only maybe have 2. I could be wrong about that, but the 1 or 2, you're not allowed to have more than that for the CEs. And your session,
that's up to you're allowed to pick up to 3.
Is it up to 3?
Up to 3, but this is another instance where what you're really showing is that you understand your material and you understand your audience. So if you are going to be all things to all people, it strongly suggests that you don't actually know your audience, because in a 1 hour session, it is very hard to bring along everyone from students to senior level people. And it's okay that your session may be targeted toward a sort of, call it, more seasoned group. That's okay. But be clear about reflecting who it's for. And so if this is for people who've likely done assessments before, then you want to reflect that in who you're saying is your target audience. And that also shows the reviewers, again, you understand your material and you understand your audience.
Right.
So it'll be interesting for them.
For some reason, I've just seen them where they've clicked all of them. I would advise, not to do that for exactly what she's saying. And I will just throw this out there, right? Just because you're creating something for very early career or student doesn't mean that you're not high level, right? It's we want people from all levels creating content for all levels, right? And so we tend to get, right, as you might naturally expect, you tend to get a lot of things that are aimed at sort of the middle, folks who are in the mid-level transitioning. Um, but we really always need stuff both at APA as well as at SCP for postdoc and transitioning psychologists. And we also need things for senior level, right? Imagine you've been to this conference 20 times. You're definitely looking for something new and fresh and that you haven't seen before. And that can come from someone with any level of experience if you have something new or different to offer. So just keep that in mind, right? You don't, it's not a judgment of your ability, who you're trying to present to.
And a note about the difference between audience skill and level of seniority. I did a presentation at our Austin conference about decentralized web technology and how there are opportunities for consulting psychologists on the bleeding edge of technology. The skill level was beginner, but I aimed the session at mid and senior level people. And the reason that the skill level was beginner was because very, very few attendees were versed in blockchain or crypto. And I was speaking to an audience that did not have fluency with the material that I was addressing. However, they had many years of experience in practice. And so we can, just because our material is being pitched at a beginner level, doesn't necessarily mean that it is only for students. And so what you're thinking about balancing is the technical awareness of your audience, which is the skill level, with the years in practice. So lots of people can have many years in practice, but they may not have a lot of years dealing with AI. And so that's where you need to be really clear about, if you're going to be talking about AI at an algorithm level, then that's pretty advanced, and it may still be for a student. In fact, some of the students may have more fluency with AI than some of the more tenured professionals. So really thinking about the mix, it doesn't automatically assume that if you are experienced in your profession, you are necessarily at a high skill level with the material that will be presented.
Okay, I see we have a question. Thank you. That was a great clarification. You always add such amazing clarifications. I love it.
You make me blush over here.
There's a lot more on that, but those were the main things that I wanted to hit. It's a much quicker, if you're not doing CEs, you can skip that whole section. You do not have to do CEs. Of course, people like content that has CEs, but sometimes it doesn't. I tend to think that there's probably the academic support out there in the literature piece that you can use. Like there's not much that couldn't be supported by CEs, but that doesn't mean you have to, right? And I've learned a lot. When I first did it, I was really intimidated by the CEs, not as much anymore. But a lot of the ones I've done have not had CEs associated with them. So if that part is intimidating for you, then, either don't or partner with somebody who maybe has more experience in that area. So, all right. Any questions so far on where to find any of that stuff or what I've shown you?
I want to add a note on continuing ed credits.
Yes.
Because this is a very big thing, not just for SCP or APA conferences, but this is for any proposal that you're doing for any sort of technical audience. So medical folks, the accountants, the lawyers, anybody who's got a professional license, the estheticians, anybody who has a professional license that has to be maintained. In most cases, people are going to these conferences because they are buffets of continuing education credits. And so the likelihood that you will have more session attendees is higher if you are offering CE credits. And CE credits and completing that information in the proposal can feel like the most painful part, because it is. You are asked to find references in the literature. You are asked to have very specific language about your learning objectives. This is absolutely, Shannon, it's true for ICF. Anybody who has any sort of licensure or certification that requires continuing ed to maintain. So in this case, what you want to be sure of is, one, you have the freshest literature available. So you want to be aiming for citations in the last 5 or 10 years. As fresh as you can get, the better. You don't have to overwhelm people with the literature, but you should have somewhere between 5 and 8 really solid sites, to peer-reviewed journals. In some cases, you are like, when I was proposing my session, there was not a lot in the literature, certainly not a lot in the psychology literature. So I was reaching into conference presentations that were being given at computer science conferences. Still peer-reviewed, still high-quality literature, but demonstrating that there is a foundation in science and evidence, which is what folks are looking for. Make the job of the reviewers easier. So include the quality citations, make sure that they link to your learning objectives, to your topic, not just sort of a keyword search and then we copy the first 5 things that show up. Because folks like the APA sort of CE providers do follow up, like they will ask questions. But to the extent that you can provide, say, between 5 to 8 solid citations, you are in good shape. Sometimes they'll be very specific and ask for a particular number. But again, get your formatting right too, especially for APA stuff. You know how excited the APA folks are about their own style. Make sure you follow that. We require a minimum of 3 for the SCP conference, but if you can land somewhere between 5 and 8, that demonstrates that it's robust. And again, it also, anything that helps get through, because this is a check the box bureaucratic exercise. And it's also really valuable for people. People come to conferences and attend sessions because they know they're going to load up on continuing ed. And also keep an eye out, particularly when you get into professions that require continuing ed credits for things like ethics. If you have the ability to fit your session to those very narrowly tailored requirements, it will make your session even more attractive and increase the likelihood of people attending. So those are all continuing ed things to keep in mind.
That's very good points. And the CE people will help you. I mean, I've known in the past for them, if you needed another reference, if it wasn't quite clear, you know, if they see things that are, if your proposal's been accepted, and because it's an iterative process, right? So your proposal gets accepted and then it goes for the CE review, both for APA and ICF. You can do one or both of those. And I have seen them come to people back and say, we need one more, or we need a clarification, so it's not like it just goes and it's thumbs up or thumbs down. Our people, our team will help you. And that's kind of true in general. I've seen where proposals have needed a little clarification. We've had to reach back on something. Maybe there wasn't something on your resume. And so if there may be some interaction. Again, I'm not on the committee this year, so I'm not making any promises, but I've seen in the past where folks have gone back and forth. Again, but it's because like, this is really awesome. We really want to do it, but we need like one more citation from the last 5 years, or, you know, like little tiny things will come back and help you. That's kind of like, that's not necessarily true outside of SCP, but within SCP, there could be some, if you're not quite there with the CEs, there could be some questions coming back. And again, it's not because you're in trouble, it's because we want you to be successful and we want this as many CEs available when you're running a conference as possible, both for APA convention as well as for SCP. We want our convention sessions to also have CEs, right? So
to address the question around industry, every professional designation has its own set of rules. So the attorneys go through the American Bar Association and typically state bar associations. If you are speaking to the accountants, you will go through the AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So AICPA grants CE credits across the board. It's not on a state-by-state basis. Typically for the attorneys, it is at the American Bar Association level. But again, if you're going into specialties, certain state bars have their own rules. For medical, it depends on what the licensure is. But typically, and for things, for example, like enrolled agents, which is an IRS designation, ICF is another good example. Most ICF, many ICF courses that we offer through SCP in terms of like our presentations that will give you ICF continuing ed credits. Typically the APA process is more stringent, but then the ICF process for approving the same, but it is a different process because everybody who hands out their own certification has their own process because it's also a moneymaker for them. So typically the attorneys don't let anyone who's not an attorney hand out the credits, but if you're speaking at a conference, get put on by the attorneys, expect that you are going to have to conform to their process for continuing ed credits. But generally speaking, in APA and ICF terms, if you are meeting APA CE requirements, you will be able to essentially double those up for ICF. I believe the only thing ICF asks is whether one of the presenters has an ICF designation. So you should expect that if you want to give ICF credentials, you will need a co-presenter, or you yourself will need to have an ICF certification credential in order to offer those credits.
Okay. So, great question.
And thank you, Mira, for the tip about putting ethics into the title. And just to comment on titles, the more clickbaity or BuzzFeedy they are, the more attention they tend to garner, except that everybody sort of caught on to that. So she hired a consulting psychologist, and you won't believe what happened next, is probably not the winning title. The goal is for your title to not be overwrought, but you want, if there are, say, 1 or 2 buzzwords that are associated with your topic, those should show up prominently. I want to also make a comment about generative AI in this context. Going to ChatGPT and saying, write me a proposal for this, is not a good way to proceed. How you could use AI in this process. I have a 3-line long title and I need to get it snappy. Help me to pare down or snap up my title. That's a good use of AI to help you with that. Now, it's likely not going to work as a cut and paste because it'll likely feel generic, but it may help you to think about how to get it shorter and punchier. Another one is if you tend toward, perhaps I do, run-on sentences or sentences, masquerading as paragraphs. That is another place where AI can help you to trim or help you to perhaps find other ways of expressing your idea in a more succinct fashion. So it's not a copy paste. It's not a way to get a proposal as a one shot, but there are some ways you can use AI to help you to smooth your writing, to help you to make it more succinct. And also for places where you want it to be punchier, as Shannon said, you will have sort of public facing and then reader review facing. For the public facing, you may find that it helps to get it down to the right character count or to just make it a little bit more catchy and compelling with the right buzzwords. So those are ways of using AI, but I really steer folks away from trying to produce one with AI because 1, you can always tell. And 2, they do tend to feel just generic and they lack the depth and the substance that the reader wants to see. So just a word about AI titles and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no. Same word counts, great. Beyond that, definitely be careful with that. So I wanted to drop the handout that I made, but for whatever reason, it won't let me attach it to the chat. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Oh, well, I'm going to stop fighting the technology for a second. I did want to show, we came up with a quick, because we're getting close to time, quick playbook, right? We've covered most of these things, and if I can, I'll drop it in the chat or email it. Remember to align with the theme and the purpose, set clear expectations, focus on both theory and actionable strategies, clearly outline your session and key takeaways, engage and manage your time effectively, have that plan out there, make sure you have your evidence. The two most important to me, though, I want to make sure I squeeze in here, show your voice and style. We want to hear you. Here's why ChatGPT sucks, because it's not you, right? We want this, sorry, was that okay to say on the recorded video? Anyway, we want to hear your style, your voice, your unique perspective. What have you learned? What have you researched? What can you bring to us? Thank you. And then collaborate and connect. This is an opportunity. The other reason I wanted to bring us together, seek mentorship, seek feedback, partnership. Find somebody who else will say, you'll read mine if I'll read yours. Give me some critical feedback. Help me with the title. Ask people to partner with you, right? Would you like to do this thing with me? If you're new and you're not sure how to do it, find someone you like and ask them, hey, would you be interested in doing a session with me? There's a lot of support in that. We are a community and we like to see that happening. So I think that's an awesome opportunity to make a new professional connection. Make sure you're choosing the right session type. Check all your requirements. Make sure you have your CE, or excuse me, your CV, the CV of your co-speaker, all that stuff ready. Know that you have to register for the conference. If you're going to propose at the conference, you do have to register to attend. Presenting doesn't give you a free conference registration. Bummer, I know, but it does not. And then new voices. Interactive hands-on sessions are sought. We have a question, Mira. If I'm not the primary presenter, is there still a limit on how many presentations I can submit? Do we have a limitation, Liz? I don't think we do.
I don't believe that we do.
Yeah, and I know at APA they do have a limit at convention, but we've slid past on that by having people be lead at one and on a panel or in a different role at another.
Yeah.
Dr. Greg
I don't think that they
Pennington
check the
has-
secondaries, so I think you're okay on that front. But that is an important thing to always check. And the other thing I would note is submitting multiple proposals does not increase your overall likelihood of having one of them accepted. What increases your likelihood of having them accepted is having your talk match the theme, the aims, and the purpose, being clear about your learning objectives, nailing it if you're applying for CEs, and just sort of also just demonstrating, and this is one we didn't call out in the form when we went through it, but also recognizing what the right format is for your presentation. So is this a big group lecture? Is this something where people will be working in table groups? Are you going to have large group discussion, small table groups? Are you going to do breakouts? All of these things relate to what size room are you going to need? What are the facilities that are possible where you're going to be speaking? So think about how elaborate the orchestration is of your setting. If you are going to have 3 or 4 modalities in a 1-hour session, that suggests to a reader you may not be great at managing your time, because you are going to always lose time going from big group to small group to big group again, because people don't be quiet when they need to be. And the moment you let them go off on their own, it will take you twice as long to get them to pay attention once again. The other thing to think about is if you are going to be incorporating technologies, oftentimes your proposals will ask you what technologies you intend to use. Always be thoughtful about whether or not you're relying on having internet access for your presentation. Be thoughtful about whether or not you're using any material that could potentially be copyrighted, for which you would need to have permissions. And also be very careful that if you are introducing tech that people in the room are going to have to say QR code scan with their phones and then be able to access, that they will in fact have the ability to do that. Most conference rooms, conference centers don't have great cell service. And oftentimes the Wi-Fi at conferences is not the best. So be really thoughtful about how dependent you may be on technology during your presentation, and also agree with your co-presenters in advance just who's going to bring their laptop. Because there's nothing more embarrassing than 5 people showing up for a session and none of them have brought a laptop.
Yes.
Dr. Rachel?
I have 2 questions, but if we don't have time for both, I'm happy to email one of you lovely people. The first is I was going through as we talked the template, and just to the point about the different modalities, if I'm inclined to just put lecture. But like we'll be asking the audience, hey, reflective question. Hey, have you ever, so would you all, I wouldn't call that a large group discussion, but I'm curious if you would, for the purposes of saying
I would check both. I would check both. I would check lecture and I would check large group discussion. And then in your outline, I would be very clear. And in your description, I'd be very clear. In this interactive session, we will combine sharing best practices, tips, and tricks with interactive audience participation. And that way you flag that you're doing both and you understand that. That's one case where just checking lecture may not always be your best friend.
Yeah.
And you had one more question and we have 60 seconds to go.
I did. So it also asks you to put your length of your background, your tenure, years of. So I don't want to be disingenuous, but I also don't want to sell myself short, particularly this topic pulls from undergraduate practice and research I did in 2004 and have continued to do. But I also got my doctorate in the field in May. So I didn't want to put 0 years, but I also didn't want to know if I should put 20 years, if that would come across as disingenuous, or however many years.
Experience is experience. And you also have the way to demonstrate that through the inclusion of your CV. So that will be clear.
Okay.
And we had one more question. The updated deadline for submission is the 31st of August.
Thank you.
And the deadline for the end of this call is in about 28 seconds. So to be mindful of everyone's time and the fact that my children are going to bang down the door for dinner. First, Dr. Shannon Jennings, thank you for being voluntold to participate. Thank you for coming along, and thank you to everyone who attended. Please do grab, if you haven't, the Google Drive link to the handout that is in the chat. And just thanks everyone. And Shannon, I will let you have the last word.
Yeah, I was hoping I would have time to ask Mira for her best tip before we left, but we're kind of out of time here. You got anything, Mira, you want to say? Because you had an awesome showing.
Awesome showing at APA, but SCP I've been hit or miss, so I'm learning just as much as everybody else here.
And I think that is the best tip of all, right? Just because your proposal isn't accepted doesn't mean that you failed, you did anything wrong. It's hit or miss. Some of it is the competition that you're up against. Some of it is, it's just really about the mix of proposals that are received and how your proposal fits in with the mix. So that is the best thing you could have said, actually, is just because you're not accepted, don't give up, don't quit, don't even assume that it was bad. Keep it up, keep going, iterate, because it's really a goodness of fit, and the panel is doing the best they can to create a program that makes sense and fits together. And sometimes we are like, man, that's amazing, but we have to choose, and this is what fits together. And you are going to be proposing against an incredible group of people who are brilliant and all have amazing things. And so just know you don't know whether you were nudged out by a hair or a mile. It was probably really, really close. And these decisions for the committees that make them are typically incredibly difficult because we get so many great proposals. So that's how I'd wrap it up.
Nicole, you said you had one quick question. If anybody has to drop, please do. Nicole, I'm going to volunteer Shannon. We'll just hang out and answer your question.
Yeah, I had asked a question earlier and I think it just got skipped in the chat. If someone just wants to sign up for like the classes and not go to the conference, can they do that?
When you say sign up for the workshops?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can
Yep.
attend a workshop and not attend the conference, which is why we charge for them separately.
Yep. Great
Awesome.
question.
That's just why that helps in advertising. That's what I was asking.
Yes, no,
Thank
it
you.
is not. It is not a required package deal. Thank you for asking the clarifying question. And you're absolutely right. I lost it in the chat.
Okay, cool. Thank you all. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Appreciate you.